Hello, everybody. Michael is here. And today, I'm debunking an oldie, but, let's be nice and say not so goody. Here's the context. Just a Robot and TheNamesJunkie made a video explaining why they don't like the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. That alone isn't a problem, but they did spread some misinformation that I feel needs to be addressed. That's pretty much all that there is to be said. Without further ado, play that sugar honey iced tea.
Anyways, by this point, I'm sure all of you are well aware of the indie game Five Nights at Freddy's, aka Matt Pat's favorite game series to do theories on. The first game came out on August 8th of 2014, and in just a few short months, it quickly grew up to the point where it was even rivaling Minecraft in terms of popularity. But there is one key difference between Minecraft and Five Nights at Freddy's.
And what difference would that be, Jar?
Minecraft was, and still is, actually a fun game.
Yeah, compared to other indie games such as Bendy and the Ink Machine, Cuphead, Shovel Knight, Undertale, and so on, Five Nights at Freddy's is less of a game and more like a button-pushing simulator with low-quality, cheap jump scares thrown in the mix.
Oh, Junkie, you little rascal, you. Anyways, what do you mean it's a button-pushing simulator with low-quality, cheap jump scares? It kind of makes me question whether or not you or Jar actually played those games. The jump scares serve a purpose. They don't just pop out at you at random points in time. They are your penalty for dying. The only game in the entire series that would actually even remotely fit your description would be FNAF 3, and even then they serve a purpose, as it's meant to temporarily blind you. Next.
But despite all of that, Scott Cawthon keeps pumping out crappy sequel after crappy sequel. And Scott keeps claiming that the most relevant sequel is going to be the last installment in the series.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god, stop your fucking lying.
Immediately after he spreads a piece of misinformation, he immediately spreads another. Once again, this is wrong. Unless you're referring to Twitter or something, he's only claimed one of them to be the last in the series, FNAF 4. And while that wasn't the final chapter, it could just be a reference to Friday the 13th for the final chapter. And if you're familiar with that franchise, you know damn well that that wasn't the final chapter.
At this point, it's pretty much like Loki dying in Marvel. People can't tell if it's actually true or not. There's even a Five Nights at Freddy's 5. You would think that Scott would stop after that point, but no, the series continues with Pizzeria Simulator and Fredbear and Friends.
Okay, even ignoring the fact that you labeled a fan-made game as an official installment, even then your point still sucks, as the most recent game at the time, Ultimate Custom Night, wasn't even an official canon installment when you treat it like it is. And on top of that, why is it inherently an issue that the franchise keeps going? Plenty of game franchises have done this before, way more than it. Like Mario, Sonic, and Zelda. I've never seen you complain about those. Why do you suddenly care when Scott does it?
Yeah, but you have to admit, Jar, some of the theories put forth by the fandom are usually quite entertaining and well thought out. Some of MatPat's best content were theory videos on Five Nights at Freddy's after all.
Yeah, a lot of the theories are interesting, but no matter what theories are put out there, there's always going to be a few flaws that makes the theory not fit in too well with the rest of the story, making the timeline of events in the game incredibly hard to follow, and it's completely impossible to fit everything together if you're not keeping track of every single little detail. Personally, I think that the story of Five Nights at Freddy's has so many plot holes that Scott is praying that people either ignore them or fit everything together themselves.
Nope.
Listen, Jar, I know the story is extremely confusing, but isn't that kind of the whole point? It exists solely to make you think. It's gotten too complicated for its own good. There's no disputing that. But if you complain about something like that and don't take it into account for being the entire point, then your point kind of falls flat. Also, you say it has plot holes, but here's the thing. We don't really know the entire story. They're only really plot holes if you consider the theories to be fact, which is never a good mindset to have towards any theory, no matter how plausible it may seem.
I'll be honest, at this point, I feel like Scott is just trolling the fandom. Remember all that drama where the fandom couldn't figure out for the lives of them whether that purple rabbit, what was his name again? Oh yeah, Bonnie. Yeah, whether Bonnie was supposed to be a guy or a girl.
Oh yeah, I remember that. The fandom couldn't agree to disagree, and they kept on arguing until Scott stepped in and confirmed that Bonnie was indeed a male. But like with most fan bases, they ignored the author's intent and kept on arguing.
Okay, that's a cool fact. One question though. Any proof? I know you probably consider this common knowledge, but I'd imagine it was on DeviantArt or some shit like that. And that's where my main issue arises with you. I don't recall any drama like that ever actually occurring. I know that it was a question, but I don't recall it ever being a heated debate. But maybe that's just me. Surprisingly for a rant, that's pretty much all the points he made that I feel like covering, because I actually agree with the rest of the video. Now that that's out of the way, final thoughts. Jar, Junkie, maybe I missed some of your points, and even if I didn't, you're definitely not the worst I've seen. But this video could have had some actual decent points, like how at times the sequels became extremely predictable and were mostly the same thing over and over again. But you didn't do that, did you? Although, to be fair, you probably would have been retreading some of the steps that have already been treaded. Anyways, I think I've said enough for today. Michael is no longer here.